Hello and welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for this Pure Chain and Sprockets webinar. My name is Courtney Sturgeon. I'm a former broadcast journalist and friend to the Spungen family of many years. We've been working on other projects together, so I'm happy to be here today telling a little bit more about Pure Chain and also about the Spungen family. Before we get into things, we have a few formalities I'd like to go through. For more than half a century, Pure Chain and Sprockets has been a leader in high-quality industrial roller chain and sprockets for dozens of industries. Pure has grown into a leading supplier of staying true to its roots as a family-owned and personally managed business. Today, the fourth generation of Spungen leadership proudly carries forward the values of customer care and employee dedication that started the company over 5 decades ago. That's an incredible history. We're going to get into that in just a minute. But first, I'd like to introduce you to some of the Spungen leadership. So, Glenn Spungen is a distinguished leader and veteran of the industrial supply industry with over 3 decades of expertise. For 27 years, Glenn served as the Vice President of Sales and Operations at Pure Bearing Company, demonstrating a commitment to excellence and innovation. And in 2012, he took on the role of President at Pure Chain. Thank you, Glenn, for being here today. And also with us today, Vice President of Strategic Marketing, Danny Spungen. Danny's journey with the company began during his college summers and transitioned into a full-time role more than 40 years ago. Now, if you would both please tell us a little bit more about yourselves and what you do here at Pure Chain.
Well, I'll say that's a fantastic intro, very impressive, but that makes me sound very old. When I have that much industry experience, that means I'm old.
And experience, that expertise goes a long way here.
It goes a long way, but in a nutshell, we're a family business. So we actually started, at least when I started, I was probably in diapers, right? So probably when you're 3-4 years old, but you're born and raised in the power transmission industry. And we just love it.
Thank you, Glenn.
Well, how about your who am I, Glenn? Are we going to do that first or no?
Well, we want to learn a little bit more about you first, and then we'll get into that.
Yeah, okay.
That's what we're here for today. Everyone's signing on. We've got people chatting about you.
I have a question for you, Glenn. What does distinguished mean? Does that mean you're old? Is that what distinguished means? You know, there's a confusion in the industry.
No, I just want to say just plenty of knowledgeable experience. How's that as an answer?
Okay. I'll rewrite that.
Gotcha. Of course, well, I'm Danny Spungen. You know, before we get started, you know, people are going to immediately see them wearing a tie. And for some reason, I got into this habit of wearing a tie. I think it's because going back to our family, when Glenn and I started working, my father would stand at the front door. And if you're not at your desk at 8:30, he's like freaking out. Remember that?
I remember.
And my grandfather says every day you got to wear a tie. I was an immigrant. I was born in 1905, and you have to dress for success, and you have to wear a tie every day. So I remember thinking to myself, I'm never on time. And Glenn, you're not on time either. You know, we're always late. That's because, you know, you deal with people. And when you're with people, you got to, you know, absorb them and be with them and give them that time. So for that reason, I said, I'm not going to be on time, but I'm going to wear a tie every day. So every day I wake up and I spend at least 1 minute thinking which tie I'm going to wear. Like this morning, I had to decide, am I going to wear a sprocket tie? But I wear that too much. My wife, Natalie, said that my Thanksgiving tie is out of style. It's out of, you know, it's 1 week old. And so, but every day I wear a tie. And I like to tell people that as long as Fred Flintstone and Dino wear a tie, I'm going to wear a tie. So I'm probably one of the last people on earth. But yes, that's basically, I wear who I am. I'm me.
Time and tie.
And I have no tie, obviously.
Yeah, I'm one of the last. There's a few people that I know wear a tie every day, but it's not many. It's kind of fun now. Now it's a joke. And it's okay.
Well, now it's a legacy of the Spungen family of Pure Chain.
Yes.
So time and tie, there are other legacies here as well, though, and other Spungens. We do know that this is a family-owned and operated business. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what kind of synergy that brings to an organization?
Well, our cousins, Jeff and Charles, we've been partners. We've been associated since birth. I mean, really, we were at work together as children on the south side of Chicago, literally playing around in the old warehouse on south side Chicago, having breakfast and lunch. And so we literally grew up together. And the best thing about family business is family, really. But again, the most concerning thing about family business is family. And believe it or not, I know it sounds, you know, you've heard it before, but we do have synergy. we're four completely different personalities, which is good. If we were the same personality, we'd be at each other's throat.
But we all have a common goal.
Yes.
I mean, at the end of the day, you may have difference of opinions, but you have a common goal. So therefore, we respect each other. We've known each other, obviously, since we were children. So we get along very well.
But we can wait a minute. We can have different. Well, no, we can have same opinions. We're just different people. We need the different personalities. You need the different, types of energy to make it whole. But we do share the same opinions a lot, and sometimes we don't. But it works out. Again, we've been in business 55 plus years. Right. July 9th, 1969. Just pure chain.
Well, now don't jump ahead yet. We're going to get into the history, but of course, many people would choose or opt out of going into business with their family. You've made it work for many years, and that is because of your family history of, like you mentioned, Danny, starting in 1969, the start of the company, but really there's a history long before that as well. Can you tell us a little bit? Yeah.
So I can put the audience to sleep, but I'll try to make this fairly brief. But how the company actually started was probably in the late 30s. My grandfather, Grandpa Nate, he went to junkyards and he knocked bearings off transmissions and pumps and sold them as used bearings. So again, every company has a beginning, not a glamorous start, but it's a start. Then from there, my father and uncle joined the business, basically doing the same type of work. After the war, there were a lot of surplus bearings in the market. So what they would do, Courtney, what they would end up doing is saying, if you're buying this certain type of bearing for $1, he would say, if I can sell it to you for 80 cents, would you buy it? And the answer would be yes. Then they would go to these government auctions, buy that for 50 cents and make the spread. And at that time, the company was called Archer Bearing. What ended up happening from there is all good things come to an end, and the surplus ran dry. Then they started to import bearings out of Japan after the war. Tough sale. But they went to Japan, Romania. So we're talking the 50s, 60s, 70s. But the company ended up changing its name from Archer Bearing to Pier Bearing in 1960. So the company progressed, importing product. And as the company kept growing, customers kept asking, you need to get into chain. My father said, what? They said, get into chain. So they started Pure Chain Company, as Danny mentioned before, July 9th, 1969. So at this time, we were basically running two different companies. The bearing company grew, and we sold the bearing company in 2008. We kept control of the chain company, and the chain company has been thriving ever since then. So it's a very proud history, and we're very well known in the power transmission industry.
But Glenn, just because this is a very famous webinar, and it's our first webinar ever, and we want to do more, but just for the sake of history, if you can go back to that one picture, if you could put up at the World War II, it was actually, if you look at the picture, we don't know exactly the history. And record keeping was not the greatest thing in the world. But this document right here, this is from October 1944. This is the first piece of evidence. So my uncle, my grandfather's brother-in-law, or my dad's uncle, our uncle Oscar, was in World War II on the German front. He sent this telegram to Archer. It was actually called Archer Sales. If you look at the window, it's called Archer Sales Incorporated. My grandfather must have had different kinds of companies. We're not really sure. But this is evidence that we existed at 1931 South State Street in October 1944. But we think the business started in 1942, 1944 era.
And then, as we mentioned before, it was in the 60s when things really kicked off. And year after year, Glenn, you mentioned the word innovation, and that's something that's hard to maintain decade after decade for so many companies. So what is it that Pure's doing differently? How do you stay a step ahead?
Well, one, you have to know what your competition is doing, right? So sometimes the competition forces you and makes you get better, right? So that was one thing. My father was also a pioneer. So he went to China the year after Nixon. So what was that, 1972?
That's when Nixon.
1973.
Right.
So he was always a pioneer, always looking ahead, right? So Where could we manufacture a product and be competitive? So that's how we end up going to Japan, then Romania, China, built plants. On the chain side, we're very well diversified. Even now, we're very well diversified. We have plants over in China, Thailand, Taiwan, looking at India, Turkey. So we're very well diversified. So that's how we end up staying ahead of the game.
But if there's one word, you said, what's innovative? God, if there's, well, God, maybe one word, maybe two words. One word, inventory. We believe in inventory. I think that is one of our biggest assets is inventory and the people. But
of course.
Really, and everybody says that. But no, we do have the inventory and no debt. So that helps.
Yeah, and the people. And we have many interesting stories about that in a few minutes. But
that's Danny, Danny's right. But that's what we're known for. We are really known for inventory.
Exactly. Danny, I can't believe I forgot to mention.
But no Bitcoin. We have no Bitcoin in our inventory.
No Bitcoin. I wish I invested in $100,000 today for one Bitcoin.
We missed that inventory segment. Yes. Okay, go ahead, Courtney. Sorry.
Well, no, I forgot to mention what a history buff you are in your philanthropic adventures, but also you have a great passion for history, and we keep turning to you for those history dates. Can you tell us of one point in time in Pierre's history where there was an innovative moment or something that was really telling of the times back then, but also of where the company was at?
Wow, a specific moment. Well, I think every individual, all our cousins have separate moments. Mm-hmm. So I have my own personal moment. As a company in general, I would think probably, of course, going to Japan was a big deal because we couldn't get enough surplus. We didn't have the U.S. military had control over the inventory. I think Japan was a big deal. I think going to Romania was also, we were the exclusive agent for Romania on paper, but there's bearings always seem to find their way through Turkey and other illegal ways. But I think a moment in time had to be Japan when we probably.
And that was
that's from my dad's perspective, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess my perspective is when we built our own plants, right? We built our own manufacturing plants and in different segments. So with bearings, it's a bearing, and also we had seals. So we actually had our own seal plant. So we became innovative in that agricultural industry. And that carried over, not obviously with bearings, that carried over into the chain industry. And now we're experts with agricultural chain.
I think every decade has its moment. And I think Japan, I think Glenn's 100% right. I think in the late 90s when we built our first plant, we watched it go up in China. I think building a plant in Argentina in the early 2000s, that put us on a global map. So that helped. I think every decade had its own deal.
Well, let's talk about the global map, but more importantly, just operations in general. Can you give us some statistics on where you're sitting right now and some things we have to look forward to in Pierre's future, immediate future?
Well, I guess when we start what we do in the first place, right? So Pierre Chain, it's a chain and sprocket supplier, and as I mentioned before, very well diversified. So you're talking about roller chain, specialty chain, agricultural chain, a metric chain, leaf chain. We have chain for all.
Some right here.
We can hold it up on the screen, but we have sprockets, chain, and we supply many different industries. You're talking agricultural, citrus, construction, conveyor, food industry, lifting devices, lumber, port lift, wastewater. I can continue, but
I've been on the website.
Right. So it's
something for every industry.
Something for all industries. So that's something that we do here. But also, I remember going to one of our major distributors, and what they commented on Pierre Chain is, "You are the king of cut-to-length chain." So over at this facility here, it's 150,000 square feet, and we have obviously a lot of chain on the shelves, as we mentioned before, but we also have an assembly area, and part of this assembly area we have cutting machines. So we cut the chains a certain length, and that's kind of what we're known for. one other, I call it a misconception in the industry, is that Pier is only roller chain. That is totally not true. I mean, the reality is, as I mentioned before, a wide variety of chain. So that's on the chain aspect. And then here, we also have a tech center. So in the tech center, we have tensile testing, fatigue testing, life testing, salt spray testing, just a lot of testing of chain, which is great for Pier, but also we can compare ourselves to our competitors and then also do these types of tests for customers. So again, there's a lot of stuff that we do internally here in Waukegan, Illinois.
And if people joining us on the webinar have questions, they can ask in our chat. I was just thinking of a few myself and see that people are already starting to talk in there. So I'd like to hear a little bit.
Yeah, but before going to talk a lot about chain, one of my favorite things that we've done as the cousins in the last, let's say 10 plus years, is that we've always had Sprockets, but it was always on the sideline. I think one of the best things I had fun doing was really putting Sprockets on the map in a big way. And now we call ourselves Pure Chain Sprockets. It's called Pure Chain Company, but we like to say, hey, it's Pure Chain and Sprockets. And a big deal was hiring some good people and bringing in our first 1,207 specific Sprockets. Not all of them, moved, but we had to start somewhere. And it's been great. Now we have these Haas equipment, these CNC cutting machines, fantastic new robotics. It's really, that's really going to help us all a lot.
I've seen it. I've taken the tour. It's a very big warehouse, and it speaks to the kind of inventory you keep here and how that sets you apart, especially in tough times when people are looking to you to really be a provider. Can you tell us about a time where that happened and you came through?
Actually, that's a very good point. I call it during the COVID logistics nightmare.
That's what I was referring to. I think everyone remembers
that.
Right,
so that was a very tough time for many companies. But for Pure Chain, from a customer perspective, the customers were basically taken care of, and they didn't have as much pain as many of the other companies have had with other types of commodities. The reason being is we carried 6, 7, 8 months of inventory for these customers. So while the product was being held up, we ended up having the inventory here. So these customers didn't really feel the brunt of the problem with chain and sprockets because we have that family mentality of bring the inventory in. We consider inventory an asset. If you talk to a bank, could also be a liability, having all this product in stock sitting on the shelves.
Is that something that's different? You don't often hear of that much inventory sitting here.
During the COVID era, people, rightfully so, they kind of freaked out and they just caved in. We had inventory. During COVID, we made a killing. We made a killing. And of course, when the logistics issues started happening, we started seeing our inventory go down. But we never, we were so lucky.
Well, and speaking of COVID, that was a time where companies really reflected on not just what's in the inventory, but also their company culture and the employees. The focus really turned to how do we set ourselves apart as a company, and company culture here is big. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about what it's like to
actually one quick thing about the when COVID happened. We as a family decided that we're going to ride this thing out. So we had a meeting with the employees, and I think it was March. And basically, what we told the employees is that nobody's going to lose a job. We're going to ride this thing through, and you're going to maintain your paychecks the entire time. So that is the family mentality.
But the culture, listen, nothing's perfect. We, Glenn and I and the cousins, were holding firm. During COVID, it became very popular to work at home. And to this day, I know companies are struggling. We have a come to work policy. It's not for everybody. And it's very clear. If you have to work at home, that's your mentality, please don't work here. We need to see people. I think it's one of the biggest concerns I have in the future. We could talk about that later if you want. What's my biggest concerns? It is where people just in person, face to face, making eye contact. It does not. It's going downhill, especially with the next generations. They can't look each other in the eye. It's pretty scary. But our culture is it's the people. We need that people. And people say, I know it, but we practice what we preach.
Well, you certainly have memories throughout the years that you've shared with me, and I'd like to share some of those stories with viewers. Tell us about some of what you've done for employees, what they mean to you and the company, really philosophy. It's become such a part of who you are.
I guess we're skipping the who am I part, right? Are we going to do that later or no? The who am I? Because I think it's important that you talk about who we are. Maybe you can throw up Glenn's who am I card and talk about who you are and then who I am. And then we'll talk about how we do that for every single employee.
The front of business cards is Danny. This was Danny's idea, just so you know. I won't take credit for it. But the front of business cards are kind of a waste, right? You have the person's name and title and that type of thing. On the back of our business cards, we have I call it, who am I, right? Who are you? So I have maybe 10 things on the back of my card. One that says easygoing, sports. You see on the back of the cards, you can't see it there, but there's 10 things on there. It's easygoing, sports. A hockey player. I used to play ice hockey growing up. I was a former tournament chess player, a golfer, bike rider, travel, Indiana.
How do you have time for all this?
Right, so classic rock for music. I also have in some of the cards a 6005 2RS. So that was the size when I was in the bearing industry. I sold 1 million pieces a year. But at the end of the day, when customers turn the card over, they go, boy, what a great idea. Now I know about you. And that's our culture.
So every single employee has, we sit down with them in their first, actually during the interview, we start talking about who you are. We take little notes about their hobbies, about their interests, and what makes them themselves. And every employee has a card, who am I? And they have it very quickly because they represent us in the industry. And the purpose of a who am I also is that we in 55 years of being in business, our quality speaks for itself. It is what it is. We would not be here without quality. So we focus, believe it or not, more on the box. What's surrounding that? What's wrapping that quality? What's wrapping that product? And that is the company, the people holding the product, and the people that are servicing you. Now, other companies, the company that bought us, our bearing company, they literally threw away the box. And it's a very good philosophy. They look and say, hey, forget about the box. Look at the product. We want a product speaking one language around the world. So they focus just on the box. Just on the quality, just on the product itself. Our niche, and there's no wrong way of doing this, our niche is that we want to focus on the box, the people around you, the customer service. We want to hug you. We want to embrace you. We want you to experience and live with our passion. And that starts out with the who am I card. And then if you want to go even further, we are really big in challenge coins. I think we talked about what a challenge coin is.
So, Dan, you're going to say your who am I card is posted up on the screen. So maybe
maybe if everyone in the chat could join in and put one thing that's on your who am I card, if you're here joining us from the company, or how many years you've worked here too. So let's take a look at yours.
The who am I card starts on the left-hand side. There's a little chain link with a little baby bottle. And that's when you were born. That's when you started working for the family. That's when you joined the family. So everybody has a birth year. And it's a big deal. It's right on the card.
And you had bibs made of chains, I'm sure, when we were kids.
Oh, no, we didn't have that. No, we never had that. But that's a good idea. Having some bibs. Yeah, every new employee should get a baby bib. I never thought about
that. That is our new marketing. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. You are
now we're in the baby business.
You're hired.
So and then but me, I'm a collector. I'm a collector of people and things, and it really is true. I really am a collector of people and things, and dogs. And so that's why I love all this, and I take the people very seriously. And then we want the employees that whoever you are, take that with you no matter what you're selling in life, no matter what you're doing. So I'm an open book. You can look at me on the internet. Just look up Danny Spungen. You find us somewhere.
Speaking of books, I know you have some of employees. Can you talk a little bit about that? Employees who've been here, who were here a long time.
So I have some props here. Yes, you don't want to get in big trouble here, but here's a book we make. This is Big Bubbles, No Troubles, and this is our employee Dimitri Elias. He was the craziest. Would you say the craziest?
Wild man.
He was the craziest sales guy we ever had, and he passed away. He died in a car crash in our car visiting customers. Yeah, after seeing a Bob Dylan concert, and he wasn't 100% there, but he's a great guy, and so we made a book about his life, and we make books about
which is kept here,
right? We kept it right here, and then we have one employee that started in March 1959, Joe Taylor, and he worked with the family from 1959 until he passed away in, was it 2017?
Yeah, somewhere.
And the back cover is a picture of Joe. He was the first non-Spungen to hold my baby boy, and so he never took a sick day. He never took a sick day. Never. He was in the newspapers. He was on WGN TV. I mean, this guy, he was a rock star, and that he represented our culture. And we had a lot of people like that. It's getting harder now. The next generation, we don't know how long they're going to stay with us. We hope a long time, but
so that kind of leads a little bit into the core values, right? So Danny mentioned loyalty, right? So Joe was loyal to us. We're also very loyal to our customers and employees. So we're going through the core values, and we call it pickle, right? So everybody has a little saying, but so ours is the
how do you spell it first?
Well,
and then tell us what it stands for?
We had to change it a little bit, but
right.
So we have the passion, integrity, community, loyalty, engineering, and we call it the second touch culture. And that's what Danny's specialty is, really bonding with people. Mm-hmm. So what we try to do is create memories, right? We try to create memories with customers, and there's many ways of doing that. So one is you try to find out the hobbies and that type of thing, but the reality is we want to create a memory. So what, again, this is another one of Danny's ideas here. But what we end up doing, if I'm on the road and I see you, Courtney, what I would end up doing is saying, I want to learn about you. I would take your photo. And in the photo, I would say, listen, I'm not going to post it on Facebook. I'm not going to put it on YouTube. Let's just take a photo. And what we end up doing here, this is a photo. This is what I send to customers. We take the photo, and on the back of the photo is a card, and I send them a note. It was great to see you, not business, but just more so great to see you. Let's keep in touch, that type of thing. And what's the amazing thing about these photos? People normally don't throw out pictures of themselves. So again, I mentioned that I'm getting older. I may go see an account, and they may have this photo frame on their desk that's over 35 years old.
Wow. And what's amazing, two things that are going out of style. I rarely receive postcards anymore or print out photos that are printed out.
Well, what makes this webinar even more difficult is that this is an example of we're no longer face-to-face. And it's harder.
We're digital. Everything's digital.
So when we meet the customers, I still have a camera. I literally carry a real camera, not a phone. I have a camera.
I've seen it.
You've already seen it.
I can't use it. Don't know how.
So again, this is our first webinar, and this is reality. We have to communicate. We have to look you in the eye, face to face, through a camera, a little tiny hole, a green hole. It's a camera lens. Hello customers. Because we do want your order, by the way. We have to ask for the order.
Always have to ask for the order.
So
that's a given.
Right. But we have to do it now through internet. It's kind of hard. So now I got to take screenshots of the pictures. And then how do you send a postcard? It's getting more difficult.
But what's really nice about these photo frames is that it does go in the mail, and it does go to their desk, and the customers see it. You get 1,000 emails a day. Your only goal is to delete them. You may not even open it. Well, customers always see this.
I'm going to jump ahead. Let me get one of my props here.
And we can't forget to talk a little bit too about something else you've got.
Let's go this. Go ahead and talk about postcards. We have something we're rolling out. It's called the Peerversary. So this is our Who Am I card show you when we started. Here you go. It's when we started. with the company. Now we have a peer anniversary. This is when, at first, this is when your first order is shipped. You get a personalized postcard. This is when it's shipped. I mean, when we start quoting you, we're dating. All right. And then when we get the order, we're getting married. All right. But then when we have the order shipped and we invoice you, that's when the baby's born. That's your peer anniversary. And then every year we're going to be sending out cards. People send out birthday cards and holiday cards. Great. We want to celebrate you joining our family. Such a new thing to try to keep some postcards, to keep some tradition, some retro life, and teach the next generation how to put a stamp on a card. People don't even know how to put a stamp.
I'm going to have to go to my mailbox now, which I rarely do.
But I do want to go back and we start talking about the who am I and why everything's so important. And we mentioned, we do books for our employees. But most people are still living, thank God. And we have what we call a challenge coin. And every single employee is a challenge coin. This was done in honor of one of our great peer chain strategic vice presidents. This guy, he really helped us out. And he spent 35 years as a colonel in the Reserve Army. The guy's amazing, a military guy. And they have challenge coins. For those who don't know what a challenge coin is, there's a picture right there. You can go on the internet. It's a lot of folklore. It started in World War I. And then every single Navy, every single military unit has their own challenge coin. Now every ambassador and airline pilots, every president has a challenge coin. Every one of our employees has a challenge coin with their name on it. And it says, challenge protected while delivered, with their name inscribed on the coin. And now we're starting to give it out to our customers because it's fun. We want to give them something physical, something that's we like them. And it's a chain outline with a sprocket in the middle. And Courtney, we have one for you.
Oh, so now, Courtney, I was just
you get your own challenge coin because you're now
yes.
All right.
Yes.
Thank
we
you.
want to do more webinars.
It.
We want to do more, but
I don't want to see it on eBay tomorrow.
Not at all. Are you kidding?
Every day I get dressed. I decide what tie I'm going to wear it. I told you it's a big problem for me which tie to wear, and I put my challenge coin in my pocket. And I look for people who are in the military because nowadays, if you don't have your challenge coin, I challenge you. You owe me a drink. And so that's a fun little game to play. So anyway, it's good.
This reminds me a little bit of New Year's resolutions, the new challenges that you put up each year for yourself. And New Year's is a big date here for yourself and one of the customers. I'm going to challenge you to tell us a short story about what happened on one New Year's Eve I check the chat for questions.
When we were not rehearsing, just talking about what customers made impact, what's a story that Glenn and I grew up together, we can share that really is kind of cool. On New Year's Eve, 1991, Mervyn, and I'm going to make sure Mervyn sees this. He retired. Mervyn called. He was not buying from us. He was buying from our competitors, but he needed some SCR 31s. He needed a couple pillow blocks. And I said, Mervyn, it's New Year's Eve. Only my brother and I are here. We're workaholics, and we love what we do. But we'll help you. But you got to give us a chance at your business. And he says, okay. And he was tough, by the way, but he was great. And so we got the order. I pulled up from the racks during the start of the computer age, and Glenn delivered the bearings to UPS. And he retired in 2023. But from 1991, December 31st.
It's a little too small.
Too small. Yeah. When he retired, I gathered every single year, every single New Year's up through 2022, because he retired in 2023. I called him on New Year's Eve, or I sent him a card, or sometimes both. So I documented every single year of our phone calls, letters, wherever I was in the world, plus or minus 5 days, because, New Year's Eve is tough on holiday season. And I gave a book. I was the only customer to go to his company retirement party, me and our sales rep from New York. It was a great experience. This is one of my best testimonies that Glenn and I together, we got this customer and we kept him. He was tough. He was good. He made us work, and that's good. We had to earn our business every year, and I acknowledged it, and he was a great guy.
And that's a great story, especially coming up on the new year. Any New Year's resolutions, anything new we're going to see at Pure Chain in the upcoming year?
Yes, you are. Yes, starting in January, we're going to have a new president at Pure Chain. His name is Drew Beadle. He's been with us right, over 4 to 5 years at least.
Wow.
Engineering background, been trained for the last year. Doesn't mean that we're going away. It's just it's time to have I call it basically a new management team. So again, we're still here, we're still watching, but it's very exciting. It's a younger,
we've got a picture of all of you.
How about this? A younger generation. What can I say?
This was a lot of fun. Drew Beal
Oh my gosh,
will be our fourth non-Spungen president in 55 years.
Really?
And so it's really cool. We have to help the next generation. We have to grow. And what was fun about this, again, this is who we are. I dressed up as a tree, and we have a great PR firm. I love these people. They really challenge us to be fun. And I dressed up as a tree, and we gave every single employee a little succulent, a little plant, because we're growing. And we announced it, and it was just a lot of fun. And I think that would give Glenn and I, we're going to do another webinar about what's going to happen next year with the next administration and the trade issues. We have to deal with that. And we want to do a webinar with Drew next year in January. But I think this will give Glenn and I a lot more time to be not only ambassadors, but to go to the factories, have the vision. Where are we going to be? How can we be more productive and beneficial to our customers with what we do here in America? And then do proper sourcing around the world. I think that's a big thing for Glenn and I. So we're going to do a lot more traveling, I suspect, and hang out with the key customers. But I think we have questions, right?
We do. I think we do have some questions from them right now. So this one's from Ryan. This is the kind of history class I would have actually stayed awake for. That's what he's telling us in the chat. And it's certainly interesting. Thank you for sharing. So how do you think your founders would feel about where Pure is today?
I think every parent, every generation, they complain about their kids. My grandfather complained about his children, and our parents complain about us. I am personally deeply worried about this AI, artificial, brain damage. It's so powerful, but this lack of in-personness. I'm an in-person. I need to hug people. I need them to feel. I'm sure you can feel some passion through the internet, but I want people to feel this passion. I'm worried about how we're going to interact. I think the best thing about us is that we look at ourselves and say, what are our weaknesses? And I have a lot of them. And what do? You hire your weakness. So a big focus for my weakness is to make sure that our marketing department is there for the digital, this e-universe. Me, I'm going to stay on the ground. I want to have a little small team that makes sure that we do the Pureversary cards, that we do the challenge coins, that we embrace our customers physically. But I know the reality is this next generation who I don't understand, they're buying this invisible currency, but God bless them. But how do we balance? How do we mix properly this physical world, which I love, with the need and the power of the internet and the e-universe? That's my big stress factor. What do you think, Lonnie?
Wow, that was stressful just listening to that. I mean, now I'm stressed just listening.
So
Ryan, in the chat.
So Ryan, that's a good question. But I think to me it goes a couple things. One is generational, and you're trying to always strive for good things. So I kind of reminisce a little bit. And so for example, my father, I'll still remember the day that he came up to me and he goes, "Your grandfather would be very proud of me today." And I said, "Dad, why?" Because we were just approved over at Chrysler, right? So that was a milestone. And then years later, we ended up being the supplier of the year for John Deere. So there are 28,000 suppliers, 12 suppliers a year. And under the Spungen management in a phenomenal team, we achieved that goal the first year being eligible. So now what's the challenge going forward? We have that same goal of getting approved at some of these major OEMs. And we're on test at some of these large accounts. So again, once Pure Chain gets approved at some of these accounts, then I can say to my family, I'm proud of what we accomplished. So there's always places for us to go and always places for us to strive. And we have a small portion of the chain market and sprocket market. So our opportunities are just this high.
Okay, we have 4 minutes and 59 seconds. Let's go to more
Exactly.
questions.
I've got one from Kelly. If you had a budget of $500 to make a memorable impression on a new client, how would you spend it?
So this is great. Kelly is one of our marketing geniuses, and he's interviewing for our marketing assistant right now. And he calls me yesterday, Danny, if I gave you a budget of $500 to make an impression on a customer, what would you do? So I went around the office asking people. Some people said they're going to go right to the casino. We had one funny comment that, well, we'll go to the post office in a limousine. We'll buy a nice, best stamp we have, a forever stamp, 80 cents, mail a nice little personal letter, and then we'll go to the casino. But if I had $500, I would probably do something with a picture, make a plaque. I would make an experience. It's
Always
a great
making it
question.
personal.
I know,
Yeah.
but what would you do? A $500 budget. I would not buy food. I would buy something physical, a collectible, maybe a plaque, something special.
Danny took it from me. It's the exact. I was going to say the exact same thing. You know, I brought up those photo frames before and how people have them forever. It would be a plaque with their photo on there.
That's only $25.
$25. Well, listen, it's $25, but it's a memory.
Yeah.
Right. It's not
We'll
just.
get those out
It's
at
not
the
just.
next
It's,
webinar.
right. It's not just a dollar amount. Right. It's the memory.
That's a great question. I got to think about it. I really got to think about that question. Go to another one. That's a hard one.
That is, I'd like to talk about the elephant in the room. This was one story that we had talked about.
Oh God.
You know,
I'll let Danny tell that. That's a
Yeah.
phenomenal
And-
story.
you know, I just happen to have somewhere down here. We got a letter. I'm a collector, right? You know, I'm a stamp collector. I know stamp collectors, you know, tough. This is postmarked February 24th, 1993. It's a letter from a lady who came to McCormick Place in Chicago, and we had animals at this. We had animals at the. We had a lion. We had a very rare bird from Vietnam. These are pictures of the bird, and we had monkeys. And these were rescued animals from illegal hunting farms. And she complained that we should not do this to animals, but she didn't really understand that you can't put them back in wild. But the story about the elephant is that we had a convention at a rebuilder show, and we bought a baby elephant, which is pretty big, and it went to the bathroom in next guy's booth. And everybody was laughing. It was a major, and he was mad. We had to pay for his booth. But I said, my God, look at the traffic you're getting. Just peel these people.
No, as you said before, it's creating memories,
Yes.
right? So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
a memory the guy will never forget.
And we create smells too. We create a smell and a memory.
I don't want to be your competitor. that could be risky there. In the last couple minutes, any final thoughts for where you're going next and what people can expect from here?
Well, for me personally, major growth, right? So the company I mentioned before, you can always increase your market share. So for us, we're very excited about the future, right? You know, we're hiring more people. We're going after different industries. The future is just real positive. And the main thing is for us to get our name out there with our customers. But kind of I mentioned before, we're not just a roller chain. We have a wide variety of product. And that's the message that we need to portray to our customers.
Of course, and we have to be positive. That's why Gwen is Gwen's business card doesn't say you're easygoing or something.
Yes.
And of course, me, when I was born,
Hyper.
yeah, I was. I've never been drugged. No Ritalin. Now, if I was born, they hooked me up to a machine, drug this kid. But no, I'm more. Of course, I'm very optimistic. But I do have this worry for the future that it's a very mature industry. How do we attract the next generation? How do we get them excited about chain and sprockets? And then how do we again go back to this world that how do we attract people and communicate? How do we have a business relationship that I know it accept you online? And for those potential customers, we need your business and we want to earn it. But we want you to experience us, not just online, not just through text messages. It's too easy now to just do business through email. And that's a big problem.
And staying connected is definitely a priority here, as we've talked about today, and hope to stay connected with you in the future at upcoming webinars. You can find this webinar recording on YouTube and on the website as well. And we look forward to seeing you in the future. So thank you.
You're going to come back and do it again,
I'll
right?
come back. I've got my challenge coin,
our
so
first
I'm back.
webinar, and the
I'm
next
official.
one, the next ones will be more serious. Not always serious, but we do want to talk about the future with the trade, and we really want to do some good webinars.
And thank you for watching, and thank you, Courtney.
Thank you for watching.
Appreciate
thank you
it.
for
Thank
your
you.
questions, and we'll see you on the next webinar. Thank you,
Glenn.
Glenn and Danny.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.